Party people. Yeah. Welcome back. Another Thursday, another True Project session. Your boy Grape Juice live and in the flesh. It is so good to see you. It's so good to see you. Out of all things you could have been doing, you decided to kick it with us. And for that, we are so grateful, man. Drop a one in the chat, man. If you are ready for these AFC playoffs, NFC playoffs, man. How y'all think that thing gonna shake out come Sunday? I'm just as interested and intrigued as you. So drop a one in the chat. I want to see it across the board. Twitch, Maverick.tv, YouTube. I want to see it across the board. Get some interaction going. You guys are in store for a good conversation tonight. Okay. Why can't we have multiple wives? You see the title. We diving into it all. And of course, you know how this segues into all things you hear, red pill, all this kind of stuff. It's everywhere. But we have one common goal in mind to get the truth. So this isn't a normal Bible study. If you're new, okay, we ain't just reading the scriptures, singing a hymn and going home. Okay, we diving into some real conversations that are relatable to you and I. That's going deeper than skin deep. And I hope you're ready. Invite somebody in here. It's going to be a good time as usual. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got for my intro. I don't even want to hold this up too much because this is going to be a fire conversation. So over on YouTube and Twitch, definitely just got to let you guys know that you guys can transition over to Maverick.tv. Get your free membership right now as we're live on YouTube and Twitch. I believe we're going to be here the whole time as reported from last week. So you guys got the whole stream, but I mean, shoot, why wait? Go ahead and get it. We got wonderful people in the chat over at Maverick.tv who are willing and ready to bless you. So be sure to get in there, man. Get a free membership. Streams going on all throughout the week. Exclusive content that you're only going to get over there. And of course, you know the deal afterwards, $9.99 a month, all that good stuff. So yeah, definitely get your subscriptions. And man, let's pray and jump into this thing. Lord, we thank you so much for another evening, another time, another opportunity to come together to sit at the table and get closer to truth, Lord. So we ask that you open our hearts and minds, that you would give us wisdom and the perspective as we walk through this conversation. And most of all, that we would encounter you in this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey there, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Truth Project. Super excited to have you here with us tonight. On behalf of Dion, Luke, Grape, and myself, welcome in. So listen, let's jump into this. Let's talk about something here. Oh, do me a favor, man, tag somebody here tonight. Tell them to come on over in here. If you are not currently with us in the Discord, or you're not a part of this group on a regular basis, you can jump in right now. So we encourage you to do that. Also, you can be in our weekly discussions that we have over in the Discord. Questions, answers, differences, all kinds of good stuff. Posting about things, having conversations around the gospel. We're happy to have you. Here's my question. Why can't we have more than one wife? Why did God make it about one woman? And if he did, then why did he do something like this in 1 Kings 11, verses 1 through 3? I shouldn't say he did. I should say Solomon did. Solomon had a multiplicity of wives. So if we couldn't have them, why did Solomon have them? And then why was Solomon still the wisest man in the world, but he still had multiple wives? Why can't we, though, have multiple wives? Why can't we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wives? There'll be some men perhaps on here who are listening to this, who are married. They might raise their hand and say, I wish I had 5. I go over here for this and I go over there for that, and so on and so forth. But why can't we have more than one wife? Or for that matter, just more than one spouse? Let's talk about it.
Haha, I was on mute. Straight to the point. I love it. I'm excited for this, man. So hope you guys are too. Shout out to everybody in the Twitch chat. I didn't shout you out. Go to JT Rigovich. Good to see y'all. The rest of the lurkers that are coming in and out, man. We appreciate you guys so much. Shout out Baka, gifting a membership already. Y'all thought I was lying to you? We got people ready and willing to bless you. What you waiting on? Go and get it for free. while we are live across the board. Without further ado, as always, PD, the floor is yours.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. I hope that you're blessed and doing well, having a fantastic week. I am. Let's talk about this, though. Let's not delay it. Let's talk about this. I have a lot to say about this. I'm going to try to reserve some of it for discussion. But listen, why do you guys think that we can't have more than one wife? I used wife because men are the ones who typically, like the TV shows that we see with the guy who has multiple wives, we're the ones who typically want to do that. We also have biblical precedents of people that we see, as I may mention to you, of the passage of scripture with Solomon in 1 Kings 11, that he had concubines and so on and so forth. We also see where Sarah and Abraham, although Abraham was married to Sarah, Sarah gave Abraham to a concubine, and she then gave birth to an illegitimate child who was not to be heir of the promise that God had promised through him and Sarah. So we do see this, and so this could be a complicated thing. Now, Greg posted this in the Discord this week, and there was some conversation around it, and there's some answers to this from a biblical perspective, but I'd love to dive into this and tell me why you guys think this, because I know there are a lot of people. Listen, I know a guy who, while I was pastoring, I had to help him and his wife because this gentleman, this exact words he told me, just as sure as I'm black, the exact words that he told me is, he said to me, he said, "Hey, pastor," he said, "I married her because she would be a good mother to my children." He said, "But I sleep with her because I knew that she'd be a freak in the bed." So now his wife wanted to leave this situation, of course, right? But he was trying to justify his position. He was like, "I take care of her." He's like, "Man, the bills are paid. We got a nice house," and they had a beautiful home, so on and so forth. He goes, "Man, the kids are well adjusted, all this other kind of good stuff." He was an entrepreneur and whatnot. He was, very well off, so on and so forth. But he was like, "Bruh, but I'm just going to tell you like this." He's like, "Man, I needed a good woman to raise my kids." He was like, "But I wanted this other woman over here." Now, this dude claimed to be a believer, a follower of Christ. So, that was the pathway that I had to take him down. So a series of coaching questions, counseling questions, and then Bible, right? I had to bring him to the place where I had to confront him with text and what the word of God says. And so I don't believe that he's a standalone guy. I believe that he's a guy who's kind of out there in culture. We hear that a lot. I'll let Greg get into this some more. He had alluded to the whole red pill stuff and all this other kind of good stuff, the things that we're hearing now. Greg actually just put out a video not too long ago, YouTube video too, where he was working with answering and responding to this lady who said, "I don't see any reason for a man to get married right now anyway, because if he does, he's going to lose everything." Now, Grape and I also had this conversation personally on another platform, and we were communicating this and talking about this. He chopped some of that up and tossed out some things. And my thing is that we're not looking at it from the benefit. Oftentimes we're looking at it from the way the culture is seeing it now. And messaging is powerful because all of us don't realize that you cannot be hungry sitting on your couch and something can cross your television, right? And the next thing you know, you start to think about it. So messaging, marketing, you're constantly being marketed into something, and we're constantly being marketed in culture to leave values and principles, and to leave those values and principles and say, well, if they're doing it, then I can do it. If this becomes a social norm, then I should be able to jump into this social norm and practice it and do what I need to do, but is that the case for us? Do Christians really get the opportunity to do that? But my bigger question is why is it not a good thing, to be honest with you? Why is it not a good thing for men to have multiple wives? And you know what else? I want to throw something in here, because this right here might get us cooking a little bit right here. Great. It's this. I know that most of y'all on here, ain't no way, I'm gonna use Greg's term, ain't no way that you would allow your wife to have multiple partners. Dudes will be in here flipping out. You would lose your mind if she was like, well, hey, I got you because I thought you was going to be a good daddy. But I got him because I knew, he could put it on me, right? There's no way. We would be like, yeah, nah, I ain't doing that. So we kind of have a double standard that's going on here. But again, let's zoom out, 30,000 foot view, and look at the bigger picture over generations, over time, over raising kids, over being in a committed relationship. What does that look like? And why is it a problem for us to have multiple wives, right? Or just simply more than one woman, a chick on the side, a couple of chicks on the side. I told you guys this before. For those of you who are new, you'll be hearing it for the first time. For those of you who are not, if you remember, maybe about almost 2 years ago, we were having a conversation about the fact that I believe that my father had a conversation with me at 16, sitting at the kitchen table, when he heard me get off the telephone with my girlfriend, and he sat down, and his words to me were exactly this. He's like, that's why you should never just have one. Now, this was my girlfriend. We were just having a disagreement. And he was like, but that's why you should never have one. Well, my dad didn't understand. He was opening up a Pandora's box for me. My dad was opening up a whole new world for me. My dad, the dude who I looked up to, was giving me permission, right? Because we didn't have a good relationship in the first place. And I had just started living with him during my high school years. So I wanted to be whatever I needed to be connected to him. So this guy who I hung on his every word was impressionable at 16 years old, told me you shouldn't just have one. So guess what? I was like, sure. I just don't need to have one. So I went down this pathway for a couple of years. It was very difficult. And I wasn't married because I was 16, but I went down this pathway till I was about 19. So about 3 years, I practiced what my dad told me. Caused a lot of pain, a lot of difficulty, a lot of challenges, 2 babies, a whole bunch of different things along those lines that were a real challenge. And this is the struggle, right? That I don't think that we understand the impact of what happens when we put ourselves in this situation, not to say what goes on with the kids, right? Not to say, because then I also think that to some degree, your authority as a person over the people that you're raising, right? And the people that you're around, I wonder, do you still have that same authority? But in today's culture, some of this stuff is accepted. Some of this stuff is accepted that you just do whatever you want to do. And then, hey, that's because everybody's doing it. It ain't no big deal. And scripture's old and antiquated, and it doesn't really mean anything. And I didn't see where God said that you can't have more than one wife. Well, hang on for a second before we get into that. Here we go. 1 Timothy 3:2 is talking to overseers of the church, those who are leading the church. And listen to what it says. This is a trustworthy saying. If anyone aspires to be an overseer, anyway, responsible, desires a noble task, an overseer then must be above reproach and a husband but of one wife. So here we see that the scripture tells us that he should have one wife, right? It also goes on to say this, and again, I'm gonna let Grape warm this up. So Proverbs 18:22, that says this to us: he who finds a wife finds a good thing, and he obtains favor from the Lord. Mark 10:9 says this: therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. So this would indicate that single relationships, and there's so many more that I could read for you, that single relationships are necessary, that these are right, that these are appropriate, that these are things that God would honor, right? That these things are things that God believes in. And so I'm just super curious to hear from y'all, right, on your end, how you view this, right? Like, how do you view this? I'm just touching on the surface because I think that there's so much more to this in terms of the challenges and the struggles that go with this. And have y'all ever actually watched that show? I think it's called Sister Wives. I think it's on TLC. And it's a dude. This brother has 4 wives. 4. He got 4 wives. Now, they lived in Utah, got kicked out of Utah, moved to Nevada, to some area where the law was allowed him to have these 4 wives. This brother walked into a brand new community, built 4 houses, all in a cul-de-sac, and each of the wives live in all these 4 houses, and he just moves from house to house to house to house, and they got something like 20 something kids. But when you look at this dude be stressed out on a regular basis. Is it even possible to handle something like this? And again, when we read First Kings and we see Solomon, here's my question. Why would God allow for these things to happen? And so let me take the question further and say, did God approve it or did God allow it? Right? In the text where we see people who had multiple wives and concubines, was this approved by God or did God allow it to happen in what we see here in the text? But also, I want to leave with this question right here. Do you think that you can actually handle, seriously, I say this respectfully too, if there's any ladies listening here, do you think that you can actually handle more than one woman? I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I've been married for a long time, and my answer to you is absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, you could be a player from the Himalayas. You know, you can take Martin's line and say, this is what I am, this is what I do, but you're not navigating that well. I can promise you that. But my bigger question is why is it not a good idea? I'd love to hear back from y'all. So that's my little rant here. Great.
Sweet, man. Hopefully my mic is connected. Yeah, it's good. Okay.
Yeah, I hear.
Man, I love that. I love that a lot. Let me turn myself down. This is pretty loud. Oh yeah, I love the question, Rigovich. We're gonna come right back to it. Let me say this too, because I think a lot of this, especially as it's circulating today, and as PD alluded to, I do have a fresh video out. You guys go check that out. Just kind of reacting to Rick Ross's new girlfriend, who we actually encountered maybe years ago, or maybe a year or 2 years ago, from this very video of just a lot of her thoughts and things of that sort. Just kind of addressing this. So I think a lot of this stuff in context, when we think of even Red Pill and so many other guys who place themselves in that context and content, there's a lot of circulating content that's like, yo, that's okay. That supports the notion that, you know, you should have more. It's a man's nature to have more. It's, you know, just something that should be happening. In fact, it's happening everywhere else, and you see their lives, right? They got more money, more cars, more this, more that. And so they kind of continue to advocate it. I was actually, it's so funny because I never got back to it. Consider this my response. I don't know if I'll ever post it, but there was a gentleman who responded to a TikTok that I made, just basically making the claims that, hey, Red Pill just massages your wounds. It doesn't really heal it. And he says, you know, okay, so what do we consider Justin Waller? And he's not even being rude, disrespectful, anything like, so of course, no attacking there. But he's like, yo, what about Justin Waller? Right? We would consider Justin Waller a really successful guy. All these different, you know, descriptions he gives, we would consider him Red Pill. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with the message that he gives?
Who's Justin Waller, man?
So Justin Waller is, I believe, a business entrepreneur, did a little bit of research, and he actually went from, I forget what kind of business he was doing prior to, but he basically shifted to building up men. Okay. Much like a similar message that you hear around Red Pill communities, but his juncture is to get men in shape, and to get men into being the best men versions they can be. And he kind of pushes the narrative of, hey, get your money right, get in the gym, get fit, all these kinds of things, which again, like I 1000% am for, right? Like his initial message, I have nothing to say against that. But when you listen to him, go on these podcasts and share his thoughts on certain things, there's a lot of contradictory that I feel like is present, because he'll tell you and suggest to you one thing, but then when you ask him about where he's at personally, I don't want to answer that. I don't want to put myself in position to deal with that. And I'm not going to pick a side. Okay, go listen to the whatever podcast where he sits with Lila Rose and a few other individuals. It's about 3 hours long. But he basically, I mean, dude is just really, it comes off really arrogant, really prideful, really nasty. He's a guy that he clearly doesn't care what you think. He doesn't put any stock to it. So you can kind of get away with saying anything, almost. And that's not to try him. That's just to, sake of the conversation. But this dude, man, yeah. He's real in tune with investing in men. But his message is very struggling to me, because he'll tell you that, hey, I'm a better father than majority of these guys. I got multiple kids with multiple women. And I'm not looking for marriage. I don't want marriage, although marriage is a beautiful thing, as he'll say. I don't want marriage. I don't want that. I don't want that commitment. I'm good. And I think there's a whole lot more value to having a lot of women in your life. And if she wants to go, cool, I ain't tripping. But this is just what it is. This is what it's going to be. It all comes from a place of, seeking out your own truth. He comes from what I understood, and I could be wrong, so I do want to preface that. But from what I understood, there were some events that took place in his early 20s, and dude kind of didn't, kind of went on an adventure to like just seeking out truth and just no longer neglecting some of the feelings and emotions that he was having. Kind of went all in, and eventually became who he is in some kind of capacity. So I tell you all these things, man, because again, a lot of these cats who we would subscribe to a red pill, manosphere type deal, Rollo Tomasi's of the world, Myron and Fresh and Fit crew. When we think of all these different guys, I'm sure there's so many other names, Justin Waller included. It's a lot of stuff that's pushed to you, man, to get you to a place where you can overcome the heartbreak and rejection that you've experienced. And the way that they do this is they introduce you to, hey, we're going to get your body right. We're going to get your money right. We're going to get all this outward appearance status up. Okay. We want you to have all the experience in the world. So that way, who you need to choose later on. But in the meantime, as a means to becoming a high value man, go have fun, ball out, and get your gains up, get your money up. Okay. All these things that are outward, appearance changes. That sounds, again, y'all, and I'm going to relate to y'all for a second. It sounds so good when you just got hurt. I'm gonna be so real. Oh my Lord. You rabbit hole in that enough, and that stuff sounds real. Like, bro, no questions asked. All women are ish. Ain't about nothing. Ain't never going, like, I did everything I could. I was everything I was supposed to be, and I'm not enough. I'm not the problem. And so you go into this rabbit hole where you start buying into those things, and then eventually you really start moving in it. And so I think Justin Waller would be a part of that. And I just struggle with a lot of these things because what we're giving permission to, y'all, and before we even get to God's design and God's way of doing things, which ultimately is the premises of this, what I'm saying is that all of that's suggested to you, man, is all for the sake of trying to escape emotional pain through emotional pleasure. That's really all it is. And what you realize is the people that you choose, the people that you hook up with, the people that you get with from that point on is just a reflection of the heartbreak you're feeling. We start using people as a means to meet a certain pleasure in order to get away from an emotional pain that we're feeling. And we have to get caught in the middle somewhere before we go full on into that space. And so a lot of this conversation is kind of directed in some ways to hurt men, because that's where it comes from. And it gets buried over time because this is just a way of life that I'm wanting to live, because I tried that investing thing and I got left broken. And I told myself I was never going back. So you know what? I'm going to let loose and I'm going to go have my fun and I'm going to go do what I want to do. I'm gonna go get it wet. I'm gonna go get it this. I'm gonna go get it that. Let's talk raw for a second, right? Like I'm just gonna get the cheeks and I'm a dip. And if you want to stay, cool. If not, I already expected, and matter of fact, bought into the story that you weren't going to anyway. So there's no way you can hurt me, because I've told myself over and over again, because of the first heartbreak and what I didn't recover from, that you weren't going to stay. You weren't going to stay. You weren't going to invest. We all know woman's nature. God forbid you get on your period and the first 14 days, you want to go kick it with an alpha. Well, I'm going to be sure that I'm that alpha guy, so that way you can't go anywhere. Like am I talking anybody's language right now? Like this is what we're hearing in the circles.
That is what we're hearing.
That's what we're hearing. 100%. And so when you hear conversations like what we're encountering tonight, where God has something completely different in mind, completely different in mind, we have to take into consideration the purity, the holiness, the completion, the beginning of things, right? But the beginning of things, in order to get to what we want out of this conversation, not just, oh, is it right or wrong? But the question is why? It's not just, is it right or wrong? Because we can make arguments like that all day. We can go back and forth all day. But I think when we get to the core of why you want to do it, we'll see a whole different world and a whole different set of behaviors that we'll have to address one by one in order to get to where we want to be. Because what you're actually chasing, you're not really, it's crazy, because you'll use them and you'll sleep with them and you'll have multiple and you'll have a roster and you'll have all this kind of stuff, but you're not really caring about that. That's why it's kind of like a game to most men in those spaces, because you don't really care about that. You're longing for a genuine connection. You've just limited a genuine connection to sexual relations. Because at this point, you would rather be felt than be known. Because the last time that happened, you were like, yo, nah, she wrecked me. And so we have, like, you're still pursuing after this level of intimacy. This is why, again, you'll hear, even in the language of a Fresh and Fit, even in the language of a Rollo Tomasi, catch Rollo Tomasi for a second. Rollo will tell you up and down that marriage may not be beneficial for the man. Do you know he's married? Has a child that's like 20 plus years old, just got married. I won't say just got married, but recently. So wait, again, so we're following people who are telling us one thing, but doing another. Do we really want that? This dude has a daughter, by the way. So wait, hold on, Rollo, hold on. So would you offer this same advice? Are you aware that it's possible the guy that your daughter is marrying is listening to your content? And it's clear you can see all the game he's running, but like, that's your daughter. Are you okay with that? I have a child, and you want to catch the kicker? He says he's a Christian. So he says he believes in the bodily resurrection of Jesus. And yet your books that have no references, no references, these are just all ideologies. Your books all point to something different. So I'm just saying that at some point, y'all, with these conversations and the source that we're following to hear what information we need, we've got to see some level of consistency. And the consistency I've seen is that the people that give permission to polygamous lifestyles, marital, dating, those kinds of things, you want to have a roster. I got hoes calling, right? Like we got all this. Okay, we got all this. But I want you to ask yourself and the people around you, why? Now, if you're in high school, you're probably like, it seems like the cool thing to do. Everybody's doing it. It's easy to fall into the peer pressure. I want to be like the fellas. I want to be included. I want to fit in. That can definitely be a reason why. Or, man, I just went through a severe heartbreak and I just don't want to feel this. So I'll do anything else. Or, you know what? I didn't really have anybody model of marriage, faithfulness, anything like that in my life. So I think about it. Parents were divorced. I've seen my siblings go through relationships where they got cheated on or did the cheating. Everybody around me just wasn't faithful. So it was just something that was programmed to me because it was what I saw. You know, maybe you're not even hurt from a breakup. You're hurt because you didn't have somebody you needed in your life, a parent, guardian, something. Maybe, and this is another video that I'll post up too, because I just saw a video of if y'all know, is her name Sadia? Man, I forget. She's a psychologist, man. She's in a relationship.
The black hair, dark hair.
Yeah, man. She be spitting facts, man. Like she has a lot of good content as well.
She does.
But she mentions she has a video that she posted out about the hoe phase. Do you know my whole approach? I'm gonna just spoil a little bit of this video. The whole approach. Let's consider why. Are you entering that because it's the cool thing to do? Or
why?
Are you entering that because there's some traumatic events that have happened in your life that you're using such a phase to escape from? So what we do is so men, this is the hypocrisy in men, and a lot of men today, is we will be upset because a woman will spend her 20s doing whatever and then come back around and say, hey, I want to settle down with you. But at the same time, we are now influencing other men to do the same thing that we're mad at women for doing, that, mind you, not all women are doing. And we just expect women to be okay with that because I'm a high value man. So I just think that's a lot of hypocrisy in there. And so we got to deal with the root. Why? And I think a lot of us, man, and I'm gonna just say this last part and then we'll get into questions. We'll get into all those thoughts. I want to know what you guys think on everything. I just think a lot of men are missing out on genuine encounters of love, maturity, transformation, all the things you say you're wanting, that you want to go to a Justin Waller for, that you want to listen to a Fresh and Fit for, to get better, to grow as a good man, as a right man, right? But they're given all the outward appearance things and you're still hurt. Like it's a reason why you have to think of the breakup to get that bench weight up. Don't you want to like do that and not have to reflect on the time you were hurt to push yourself? Like, don't you want to actually have a different reason that's more healthy? Don't you want to be able to come home and go to sleep at night and get some actual rest and not have to worry and be relieved of those pains? Does that not sound more enticing in some kind of way? So we're going to those guys for that. But genuine transformation, the maturity and the heart transformation, the growth in the mind, the growth in the character. I think a lot of men, we're cheating ourselves from those experiences. Most of all, we're cheating ourselves from encountering God. We're cheating ourselves from God. I'm not telling you got to take every girl who done some crazy stuff. That's not my message. What I am saying, though, is that I think if you get understanding, there may be some different decisions that you would consider making because you can understand how they got there. Just like you want someone to understand how you arrived where you were. Okay, I said that was my last thing. I'm going to say this. I found this in the text maybe like a week or so ago, bro. Blew my mind. Y'all remember Hagar? Y'all remember Hagar, who was, again, as we introduced in the beginning, concubine of Abraham. Abraham going to Egypt, had no business going there. He brings her back. Sarah is now impatient, wanting to help, trying to find a reason to help God with the promise. And so she says, you know what, this ain't never gonna happen. So Abram, I need you to go ahead and take care of business with Hagar. He like, shoo, you ain't saying nothing but a word, shawty. So he does it. He sleeps with her, right? And then Sarah gets jealous, says some things, perhaps does some things, and sends her away. And then Hagar encounters the angel of the Lord. Cool, we get all that text. I want y'all to just see this for a second. Hagar runs away. She's in the wilderness and she's in distraught. She's hurt. She's crushed. She did not see that coming. She was not expecting it, and she was hurt. This is something that pain does to us. It's so interesting that the angel of the Lord catches her in the wilderness. Pain drove her away from the environment in which it was caused. She was pushed out. And she says, I don't know. In her movement, I should say, she says, I don't know where I'm going. All I know is I want out of here. So she leaves. Please hang on to this. Just listen. She leaves. And now that she's between a place where she doesn't want to go and she doesn't know where she's going, listen to the question that the angel of the Lord asked. Where did you come from and where will you go? That is such a fire question to catch somebody in pain, heartbreak, trauma, frustration, anger, disappointment, blindsided. I have no idea what's going on. And the angel of the Lord, where did you come from and where will you go? She was able to tell him where she came from, but she couldn't tell him where she was going because she didn't know. She just knew I wanted out of here. And then the angel of the Lord continues to prod. And then ultimately comes the deliverance for Hagar, where he says, I see you. You're going to have a son. It's going to be okay. And I see you. In the midst of a wilderness space where she was losing her mind and was possibly going to go into some stuff that she may not have perhaps lived to tell about. And he rescues her by stopping her in the midst of her pain right there, asks her those questions, says he sees her, and then tells her to go back. Go back? What? Tells her to go back. And she willingly does this, though, out of obedience to what God instructed. Don't hear me tell you that you're instructed to go back to the person that broke your heart. It's not the message here. The message, though, is being caught in pain, in frustration, and in hurt. God is still present. He sees you and he's speaking. But everything else that you're listening to is drowning his voice out from you being able to hear. Doesn't mean he's not speaking. It just means you're not hearing. And the instruction that he gives you upon your obedience to that is what's actually going to get you the healing you need. That's the message. In the midst of running from pain and you have no idea where you're going to, and you're tempted to go everywhere else but the right path. It's loud, it's crushing, and it's demoralizing, and yet God is there, gently wanting to deal with your heart and speak to you in such a space. Question is, will you hear him? Will you give him time and day like Hagar did? Because Hagar didn't even have to respond. She responded to the questions that were asked. I think it's up to us, man, when we encounter those rejections and heartbreak, to be willing to take a second to just step away from everything we want to run immediately to get rid of the pain and suffering we're experiencing in that moment. I think then you'll hear God. I think then you'll hear God and you'll be able to actually move forward and get the healing you need. Because it's tempting. It's tempting to move in this pathway. I need multiple so I don't get hurt. I need a roster so I don't have to invest in one. I need that. But you don't. It's all just a coping mechanism. And we have to be willing to deal with that. So that's it. I ran it long enough. But I just think that that's something that's so interesting to see in the text, man. And it's just crazy. So, I don't know if you had anything else, PD, but we're going to dive into some of these.
Let's look at some of these questions here, or some of these thoughts here. I think it'd be good to answer. How far back did you get to? Have you got questions on the platforms too, or just? Yeah,
I'm on all. So let's check out. Tyrone said, "What's bro babbling about?" I hope you caught a little bit of that. You might have walked into the middle of it. I don't know who Justin Waller is. Red pill guys do that. They could be lying about how successful they are. There's no true satisfaction, Explode V says in YouTube chat, that comes from that. It's just temporary pleasure. I agree, Explode. Yeah. If you guys know Zirian.
Well, hang on for a second. I'm gonna push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because the scripture is very clear to us on one thing. you know, check this out. A lot of people might sleep on this verse right here.
Mm-hmm.
In Hebrews 11, 25 and 26, this is what it says. It says, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Sin is good for a season. Hebrews says that. Hebrews says that for a season, this will be good. Now, not good in the way that we would say God approved, but good for a season. So I do believe that there is some benefit for some of these people. The question becomes, is the fruit that comes after these encounters is what? What remains after this season of sin? What remains, right? In there, let's go on to say that free will is in play here. Disobedience is in play here, right? Free will, I say, because the scripture also says that you can do whatever you want to do whatever you want to do, but not everything is beneficial. So free will is here. So God has always opened the door for us. The Bible tells us that we can choose, right? It tells us that you and I can choose. I'm gonna pull up the scripture so that I give it to everybody. Today I've given you a choice. Deuteronomy 30 and 19. I've given you a choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. All that you would choose life so that your descendants might live. See, the reality is that God gives us a choice to say, I know right, I know wrong, and God's like, cool, choose. Now, God calls one death, and he calls the other one life, and he says, and I got witnesses, heaven and earth, on what you're going to do. And he says, I pray that you choose life. So the implication here, watch this. This is what I don't think people understand too. Dude, some girl decides it's cool, he got multiple women or whatever, whatnot. She stays involved in that relationship. Do you understand, man, that this dude is carrying, and again, I don't mean to be gross, I'm gonna try to say this as nice as I can. He's carrying bacteria from one place to another place, to another place, to another place, to another place. She's sharing her body with this dude, man, and he's back and forth. You know, it's a lot of gross stuff that happens, man, with this whole process here. And who knows who else, this cat might be sleeping with or whatever, whatnot. The implications of this are horrendous, man. I don't think people are thinking with their right head, if you will, right? And regarding these things, it can be incredibly challenging to try to navigate this situation. But my question, though, Greg, from everything that we said, is this to everybody, and I still want to answer the questions or the thoughts that are in there. What's going on inside of a man that he says to himself, high value or not? Does high value say, I got to have multiple women because that keeps my value? Or is he high value because of his money, his status, his position, his culture, his color? What makes you say the amount of women that I have determines the high value that I am? Well, what is that? Why do you need multiple women? That would be my question. What's the need for multiple women? What's the need for it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, and I'm gonna try to answer that, obviously, from maybe, hopefully, in their perspective. I think how they've explained it, how people have come in the comment section over time and shared, it's just more like, so what brings them high value isn't necessarily the women or the sex, it's a means, is how they describe it.
A means to,
a means A means to high value. Yes. A means to this status where they are now considered basically undeniable.
So I know dudes, I know dudes from the hood who have multiple women that definitely wasn't high value. Missing teeth, but they have multiple women and multiple kids, but they weren't high value. So he's saying this is a means though to high value. This multiple sex partners, multiple women on your arm. This is a means to see this definition is blown out of the water because there's hood brothers. There's trailer park dudes who got multiple women that they sleep with, but they're not high value. So I think the same issue is going on in quote the men who has the status that says he's high value, as so is the man who works at the junkyard, but he's got multiple women too. I think the same issue lives in both of these men, which I find to be very interesting as we're having this conversation. That same issue lives in both of these men. One of them has all the means that once he can put you on a jet, fly you to wherever, have sex with you, send you on a little shopping spree, tell you go home, right? The other dude, he can't do nothing for you except for come over, bring a couple of Miller Lights to your house. Y'all maybe smoke up a few things, he rocked the trailer and then send you back home to Bo. Both of these people are doing the same thing. So the question to me is, what's happening in that man that says this fulfills me in some way? What's going on with him that he needs to have multiple people in his life like this and he can't just be with one? Is it a party? Is it just a way to show masculinity? How many women you could pull? I mean, what is it?
I think it could be a mix of. I think it could be a mix of all of that. I think it definitely has a touch of, and we talk about this, me and you quite a bit more so. Like, I think this also just has a loss and a masking of identity, right? So when we didn't address that first hurt, what we did was we just buried it. And we buried it through all of those activities outwardly that kept us from actually seeing the use of our value. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I think because there's a loss of identity in that space, because we just put our value in that person, right? Like we convinced ourselves through social media posts, through retweets and Snapchats that I'm nothing without her. We convinced ourselves of all of that. And this is kind of where you hear the language, don't put her on a pedestal. And if she's on one, knock her down. So she's looking back up to you. All this comes from a place where you made the decision to make her out to be superhuman. And so what happened was you encountered her legitimate humanity, and that rocked you. This is why you're against marriage deep down in your heart, because somewhere, and I'm not going to say that this is something that they're thinking about that far, because we see where a lot of their thinking is coming from. But I don't doubt that there could be some people who think, I'm going to see the real her in marriage and I'm already tied down to that and then I can't leave. So there's a struggle, man, to commit to that. But there's a struggle to see that in themselves because of all of the programming that they've had in their mind up to this point, that they're not the problem. This is the danger in telling people without context that they're not the problem. Because you know what's crazy? You actually might have got rejected because your character's terrible. Like, you just aren't a enjoyable person to be around, not because something is wrong with you as if it's unchangeable. Your character, your integrity Like that stuff's inconsistent. So I don't know if we should expect anything less, which is why we have to deal with the inward instead of the outward. So I think in both men, a mixture of what you said, and I think somewhere along the lines, we decided to put this man decided to put his identity in that person's hands to the point where they did not know what life would look like without him. And when that reality hit, they were almost long gone. From a place of being able to have what we would consider an immediate bounce back.
Check this out. I just looked at Quora and Reddit. Here's what they said. That men need variety. So even if they have a good meal at home, they're looking for a different meal elsewhere. That's consistent. This is consistent of what I'm seeing in these comments here. This is what they need, right? So men need this variety, right? Men sleep around because they don't want to be tied down. Do y'all believe that? That men sleep around because you don't want to be tied down? Let me introduce something here that I think is important for us to consider. Have y'all, put a 1 in the chat if y'all have ever heard this. I don't know if I can get with her because I haven't slept with her and I got to know if she's good in bed before I can sleep with her. So if you're on any of the other channels and you're here in the chat, put a 1 in that if you've heard that before. Put a 1 in there. I'm gonna tell you, listen, put a 1.
Yep.
1. If you're in here listening, put a 1.
Yep. Definitely heard that.
I want y'all to think about this. What if the idea is that you're not supposed to know whether it was good or not, and that when you waited to get married and the way that God intended for us to, that what you then would do was have the beautiful opportunity to discover what it means to be with the person that you're with and not be comparing it to all the people you slept with prior. What if you were meant to just simply have this beautiful, monogamous, incredible journey with the person who you are married to, and you have no other outside context of what it means to be in this relationship? A lot of these ideals, y'all, great, are coming from people who've gone out there and you had certain things. I cannot tell you how many people that I have sat with over the years who want to leave a woman who's a good woman, because this brother has somebody out here do something on his lower regions that his wife's like, hey, that ain't my thing. She's a good woman though. Meals, home, she don't have no problem. With intimacy, none of the other kind of stuff, she might not do this. But because he was with a freaky freak, he's like, man, I feel like I'm missing this. I feel like I'm missing that. You see, his whole ideal of what the marriage bed is supposed to be about, while the scripture says it's undefiled, he's turned it upside down because he had all of these previews, right? Before he got to the main feature. And now, because she don't act freaky or hoe-like, he's like, I'm good. I need something different. What if the ideal is that you're supposed to discover that with the first person that you sleep with, and you all get the beautiful opportunity to explore what that really looks like? What if that's the ideal?
I would agree. I think that's a powerful way to look at it. I actually just did. It's so great that we're talking about this because I think a lot of conversations I've been having are pretty prevalent to this. If you guys, I can drop the link in the YouTube and Maverick TV. I just had an interview with a guy who was single all his life and is just now engaged, about to get married. at age 31. And dude's story is phenomenal. And one of the things that I asked him was, man, what were some of the benefits to you remaining single for so long? That seems like a pretty big challenge for our culture today, to remain single for oh so long or for X amount of time. I remember telling myself over a period of time, like I didn't see myself being a virgin or this kind of stuff by this age. That's just because of my poor perspective on it, but that's what I said. And so talking about this, he's like, yo, I don't got to worry about comparing it to nobody. Like, it's just a different level of freedom and safety to know that I don't have to compare her to anybody. Not even just physically, but emotionally, because I didn't give myself to anybody and just everybody. So now this can actually be enjoyed. I don't have to worry about leaving or her leaving. I don't have to do that because neither one of us have put ourselves in position to where we're like, yeah, you do that, but you're not like him though. You're not like her though. And I think long term, man, I think that's one of the things that I've learned about myself is that it's easy to not think about the long term benefit to things when you're so zoomed in on what you feel you're missing out on now. Like, you look at now and you're saying your singleness is dry, terrible, frustrating, and I just want to boo. But a lot of that frustration, as we talked in that same conversation, if you allow it to simmer long enough, you're going to start making poor decisions and you're going to reflect on it and wish you would have remained where you were. Because now we're not only not where we wanted to be, but we're leaving a trail of chaos behind us. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying there's a certain amount of years you got to be single for before you get married and all this kind of stuff. But I'm just saying there's value to that singleness. There's value to waiting. There's value to that. And unfortunately, just as the same conversation that we have about marriage in and of itself, and if it's beneficial for the man, as you alluded to, man, we've taken that out of context. So we look at marriage and we say, bro, I get all of that here. I don't even got to go in the covenant. I don't even got to do all that. Sex is here. Housing is here. We got stay-at-home girlfriends trending on TikTok now. So it's like, what I got to do that for? And we're desacralizing this stuff. It no longer has meaning to us. And I think that's always where the problem is. And that all starts with perspective. That starts with the pain. That starts with a lot of that stuff, man, where we were trained up in a certain way. We expected our first encounter to be the last. It wasn't. It hurt us. We never recovered from it. Marvin says, I'm sure porn had to play a part. His expectations were skewed by a unrealistic fantasy. That's usually the root. I agree. Pornography plays a huge, massive role in a lot of perspective and thinking processes of men. Yes. Yeah, I would think it could.
Pornography. Okay, so we know the pornography changes the mind. We also know that it's crazy because you're dealing with a fantasy. It's not real. Like that person on that screen, it takes you into this place of fantasy, so it's not real. So you don't even know genuine connection. You know release, but you don't know genuine connection. You don't even understand what that means. So what you then start to do is you start to objectify who you're with. She just becomes a piece of behind for you. But this is somebody you're supposed to love, supposed to be building something with, building a family with. And so porn tells you like, no, if you don't bust it open like this, if you don't do it like that, you don't swing from chandelier and we ain't, on spin tops and all this other kind of stuff, then, you're not doing what I need you to do. But the truth of the matter is like, this dude isn't worried about his well-being, being loved, being cared for, being taken care of. If in the event he struggles, he goes through something or whatnot, the truth of the matter is you're alone because all you were good for anyway was what you had to poke into her. And so you're done at this particular point in time. You get sick, something goes down with you. You don't have no woman because you don't have no value to her anymore. You're no longer high value. You're just a sick dude with I almost said it, with a penis. That's what you are. You're sick with a penis, but you don't have any more value. See, this is part of the problem of what we're not seeing is connecting with somebody who loves you and you love them. And then the ideal is that you guys carry on in a relationship, a significant relationship, a valuable relationship, a God-centered relationship, one that looks like what God said that he will bless. It's so different, man. It's so different. And so, yes, we watch stuff and it skews what's really supposed to happen. Man, listen, I'm gonna say something to y'all. Christians should have the best sex lives ever. Straight up. I'm gonna do a Tim Ross on y'all. Have y'all ever heard Tim Ross, man, talk about him and his wife? It's almost rated X. I agree with that, brother. Your Christians should have the best sex lives ever, man. But we can't, because too many of us have gone into these pathways, man, with these things, and we've allowed for these other outside scenarios, y'all, to jump into our minds and start to get us twisted in the way that we do it and thinking we need something else. But can I say this? I've said this before too, and I think it's worth saying again. The only thing different is the face. I'm just gonna let y'all know that. I'm just gonna let y'all know that. I know that some of y'all be like, oh, is this at a... No. The only thing different is the face. That's all. That's all. I wish I can't explain that any more deeper than that. But when you get married and you're in a covenant, you're in a commitment, and you've got somebody who you're living your life with, man, and you're spending your time with, you're making love to them. You're connecting with them. The other part, I can't really say what I want to say. The other part, that's all you're doing in the other part. That's all you're doing in the other part. That's all it is. There's no connection in that. And anybody who's willing just to give up their body like that, I'm curious, man, to know what's going on in their mind. Seriously, I'm curious to know what's going on in their mind. But anyway,
yeah.
If anybody had...
Yeah. So,
Keyshawn, I'm telling you the truth, man. I'm telling you the truth, bro. The only thing different is their face, Keyshawn. I'm telling you right now, bro. That's all that's different. Because at the end, you're still going to do what you do because your body is meant to do that. That's the only thing different. And perhaps what that person will do for you that somebody else may not do for you. But again, how you know that when you get married, that your spouse might not be open to some things? You don't know that. Instead, you come in with preset expectations because you done already been with a couple of other hoes. I'm just putting it out there. Because I'm going to be honest with y'all. Y'all might not think this is fair that I say that, but that's how I feel about it. If you let a man run all through you, that's a hoe. He's a hoe too. I'm just being honest with you. They both hoes. You got to have some respect for yourself. You got to have some value for yourself and say, wait a minute, I'm worth more than this. I'm worth more than that. And it can't be cars and bags and trips and Instagram pictures and all this other kind of, what is that? What does that mean? What does that mean? Then you just all alone. That don't make no sense to me, y'all. This whole concept doesn't make any sense to me. High value, low value, red pill, blue pill, black pill, green pill, Pillsbury. None of it makes any sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This ideal of, I need multiple women. You know what I think it is? I think it's an insecurity. I think it's an insecurity in men who don't have the ability to commit and to connect with one woman and build something with them. Because if you can build a business, and that's the thing maybe that brings you your finances, and you can put that all together, you can't tell me that you don't have that ability. What you're telling me is that in this place, you're too insecure to commit to somebody who could put a demand on your time, right? On your resources, on your character, on your integrity, right? On who you are as a person, right? And you have to perform in those other places. So what you do is you bypass that, thinking that as many people that you lay down with is your power, when in truth, that's a weak man, not a strong one. You're a weak man if that's what you do. And you're like, hey, I got this going on over here. I said it a couple of days ago on my own social media. Don't be winning in all these other areas and then losing at home. Don't, because you'll have people clapping for you doing the wrong things, because you can be sincere and be sincerely doing the wrong thing. I don't want people to clap for me outside of that. I don't. Don't clap for me outside of that. I'd rather have my wife and kids clap for me, and now my grandkids. Those are the people who matter the most to me. Let them clap for me. I don't need the applause of other people outside of me to clap for me. My wife and kids, though, I'm winning when that happens. It's a bonus if I go out in society and that same energy, that same space is being handled out there. It's different. So I actually think I was holding back to say what I thought, but we've been on for a little hour and 12 minutes, 12, 15 minutes. I actually think it's an insecurity, y'all. And it lacks accountability. That's what I think. Those are insecure men. That's what I think. Yeah. I don't think that's nothing. I don't think that's balling.
No, I look at all those activities and actions, and I see something completely different than what other people may kind of praise in comment section and allude to. Like, yo, he balling. Oh, he a high value man. Oh, no, I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of pain, insecurity, struggle. 1000%. So I like those thoughts. Man, let me get to some of these questions. I also want to say this too, I guess, to kind of end my little saga on that. I was trying to find a conversation. I think I found it. Man, I think one of the ways that I think as believers, man, as men of God, being in a culture like this and looking to have impact, one of the greatest things you can do is tell your story. Tell your story on the struggles you've overcome, your testimonies, all of that good stuff. But tell people how purity has been helping you. Like, tell people how you saving yourself for marriage has actually benefited you and not hurt you. Sit down and have conversations with people and share those things, because we're in a culture. I saw a question where Keyshawn asked, his question is, as a society, are we desensitized to the point that there's no turning back? I don't think it's to a point that there's no turning back, because I think with God, all things are possible. I believe that God can cause so much shift in people, man, and a radical change, drastic. I mean, can happen in an unknown time. Okay. So I don't think it's a sense that it's too far gone. I don't think we have let me not speak in the sense of generalizing the universal body here. That's an easy thing to do. I don't think, from what I've seen, that there's more people talking about their experiences and how they overcame, how God helped them overcome. I see a whole lot of more like, hey, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Stop doing this, stop doing that. We want people to just stop sinning instead of, man, you know what? Let's get some context, some dialogue, and some understanding on how you got here. But more importantly, let's journey through this. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's journey through this, and be willing to walk with people who you're around who may be struggling with those things, and really, really be with them in that journey. When they have setbacks and relapses, we don't cook them and grill them. We just help them stand back up and keep moving forward. It's a lot of altar work, man. That's a lot of stuff that we have to dig into. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to come from you to do it. Some people need therapy. Some people need that legit stuff, man, to really dig into some real issues that, man, they didn't even see and they didn't even know were the problem. And so I think a lot of times, man, we got to be willing to lead by example, not by not by matching the energy of culture. Like, I don't think we're as dope as we think we are when we're coming on these platforms and crucifying other people who are of the same body. Like, I don't think we're that dope. For you to go crazy and bombastic and call out people, man, like, I just don't think we're that dope at all. I think we need to move with the energy that Jesus moves in. I saw again in the text this morning, man, Jesus asked questions. I mean, Jesus did, man. He asked questions. He was in the middle of the heat. They came with plans to trap him, everything. Jesus asked questions, yo. And I think that's a way that we can process and deal with these things, and not just, oh, well, I'm a virgin, like telling people, like, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but can we just keep it in some context for real too, since we talked about Tim Ross, because he's legit in this, and I agree with him though. There are some people who are that because they didn't have options. It ain't because you had all that stuff thrown at you. I'm not shaming you, but I'm just saying, like, we got to stop bragging about this stuff as if we're just better than people who have done it. And we're better than people who have been through some things that led them to that space, or they were in a long-term committed relationship that got intimate over time. And it's just what they did. You're not better than them because you saved yourself. If we really got into the nuance, you had no choice. You had to be home before the street lights came on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, bro, come on now. But I'm just saying though, we got to be willing to share our story and share the benefits of it, because it helps. I'm gonna share this, and then I'm gonna get to the rest of the comments. I see John has a question in there, and I love that. So I think I've shared it before, man, but I actually experienced this, man. I had no idea that this conversation impacted this girl's life, man. She's married now. I'm so excited for her. She was a part of our basketball managing group. She actually married one of the other managers, Mark. His name is Mark. Knew them both. We're friends with them both in high school. But we had a conversation sit down at Whataburger. This was after we went to a high school game. We caught up, her and her group of friends, and I just tagged along. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go. I don't really step out that much, but I'm gonna sit with them. And they were talking about their own thing. I was just sitting back listening. And then they kind of started talking about stuff that I was intrigued about, Bible, all that kind of stuff, just asking questions. One of the first questions that she asked, which she was a dear friend of mine. But she was cool. She asked, "Are you a virgin?" I was like, "Yeah." That was the first time I had ever been honest about my sexuality status, because I was somebody who wanted to appear. Man, I was so caught up in just wanting to appear as something I wasn't. I wanted to be like everybody else. I didn't look like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, what's up? Go for it.
Why did you feel the pressure to say, "No, boy, I be knocking boots all the time"?
I was more afraid of how they would perceive me if I said the truth. Yeah, 1000%.
That's the one thing that kills almost every dream that everybody has, is the perceived perception of other people about who we are. Seriously. And all the years that I've been alive, the dreams that are killed the most, the biggest dream killer in life is other people's fear of somebody else's perception of who they are. Biggest dream killer ever. It's not that God didn't give, it's not that they don't pray, it's not that they don't have a plan, it's not that they haven't even been around other people. It's the perception of somebody else that kills their dreams. Unbelievable. Yeah. But go ahead. I was just curious.
I love that. Yeah. And it was real, man. I sat back. I was like, yep, I am. And what's crazy is they were shocked. They were shocked. And they were shocked because, well, you're tall, you're black, you play basketball. Like, duh. All these stereotypical things. I was like the tallest kid in my school at the time. Not too many people were 6'6" and wearing, it was kind of tough. Don't cook. But they were, sharing all that. I said, man, look, I said, can I tell you why I've chosen? It's not, and I kind of prefaced it by saying this because it's true. It was true. And I was just trying to be as honest as I could in that whole conversation. It's not that I didn't have opportunities. I just didn't do it. More so because I was afraid of consequences, man. My conscience was huge on me, man. I couldn't lie to you if I really wanted to. Like if I'm horrible at it. Okay. Like you see it all on my face. But I was like, man, yeah, I had options, but I just didn't. And here's why though, because like I recognized my value. I did. I was like, let's be honest. You know, like once I start, it's going to be really hard to stop. And I don't really know if you're here for the long haul like that. Like, I just don't. And it's going to be impossible for me to really know that once we start laying in bed together, because that's going to start seeping into being a major part of why we stay together. Here's another interesting thing. I don't think I shared it with her at the table, but it was something I reflected on when I got back to the crib. I was like, bro, I saw so many people in my relationships, in my relationship circle, man, they were together just because the sex was good. I mean, they was going crazy all throughout the week. They would tell you straight up, yeah, we was knocking boots, we was in the back doing all that. But you could tell, man, they was toxic. They just like, y'all don't make sense. And y'all are sitting here.
Was the sex good, great, or were they just having sex with each other so it was safe and they didn't have to worry about anything else? Because you just talked about them being toxic. So they didn't really even have any kind of love,
right,
any kind of care for each other,
right? But
it was safe and they could do this with this person.
Yep, 1000%.
So that's not even a real relationship. Like I said, I can't use the word on here and then y'all wouldn't think I was saved, but that's what they was doing.
Yeah. all violent. Yeah. And so, yeah, they were all, but I just essentially told her, like, I care for my value and I know my value. I'm aware of it. And as we were talking, you know, and I continue to share it, I continue to share my story, my testimony, those kinds of things. And they was like, man, I'm finna tear up, just continuing to listen to you talk, all this kind of stuff. I come back around, you know, I have the message right here. I come back around this. I checked in, maybe this is about 3 years ago, December 2021. I just shouted her out. I was like, man, I appreciate you. You know, remember that conversation we had? That was so helpful. Just getting insight from people that I've been around for so long, because she was even telling me at the table, like, I wish I would have waited. That's what blew my mind. She's like, I wish I would have waited after experiencing it. Yeah. 1000%. I remember being in Xbox parties. These cats that were talking about having rosters every day, all day, coming to the lunch table. Look who I got. Look who I got. Look who in my phone. Look who sent me this. Look who sent me that. Man, they like, bro, it wasn't worth it. I said, what? I said, it wasn't worth it. He said, no, it wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth it. And I had the biggest smile on my face. But here, I'm gonna read just a little bit of this. She was like, if I'm being completely honest, that conversation with you helped me out a lot too. I wasn't expecting that. I said, dang, do you remember what I said? Because I don't even really remember what I said, but I remember what you kind of said. And at the end of the second message she sends back, she says, when you were talking about saving yourself for marriage, I said, that's interesting. I think I kind of said things that she mentioned about her previous relationship, and that's what kind of led us to that conversation. She said, I did make the decision. This is quote, I did make the decision to save myself for marriage based on our conversation that day. I mean, just talking about those things, man, it can spark some change and transformation in people's hearts that you would not believe. I did not come to that conversation and say, you dirty, and start cooking and start going crazy. I didn't say that you're a sinner. You need to get in you need to say the Lord's Prayer. You need to wash up. No.
Okay. But you did say earlier.
Yeah.
You're referring to something to Tim. You're not better. I don't necessarily think that it's a better or a worse in terms of judgment. Mm-hmm. I don't think there should be necessarily a judgment, but I will say, I do think that it's better.
Yes.
I think that judging that person, I think that's the wrong thing to do. But I will say The better choice,
yes,
is to wait and do it the way that God intended for you to do. So I would definitely use better in that terminology. And I want you to think about what she thought about. She was like, yo, this is better. This is better. So judgment is not the same as saying, listen.
Discernment. That's what you're speaking about right there. That's the difference.
How many brothers you got?
Two. Well,
Two.
One. But
okay, so one brother. Same house, same parents. Grow up, same house, same parents. One of y'all grow up, same house, same parents. One of y'all grow up, become a serial killer. The other of you grows up and becomes a federal judge. Was one better?
One's decisions were better.
So was one better?
Better because of it, yes.
So a decision comes from knowledge, information, identity, purpose, and all this. So to me, it's better.
Yeah.
It's better. Judgment would be, you should have been me. Does this make sense?
I get that. I like that.
But better is, I made a decision to do this. I don't have to turn my back. I don't have to look behind me. I don't have to worry about this, that, and the third, so on and so forth, prison, all this other kind of good stuff. That's a better decision. But saying you should have been me, no. But saying you should have made better decisions, I do believe that there is better involved in that.
Yeah, I agree.
Somebody called me and told me that somebody was pregnant several months ago, and I was shocked. I was like, oh, that. And I'll be honest with you, the first thing that came to my mind was judgment. But the good thing was we were over the phone, so they didn't get to see my face. The best thing that I could do, and I ultimately did in that conversation, was say, well, let me know how I can support you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Because
I didn't do better because my kids didn't get pregnant as teenagers. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
As teenagers, they didn't get pregnant. I didn't do better, but they made some better choices. A better choice would have been for her not to go down this pathway.
Yeah.
You tracking with me?
1,000%.
Okay. All right.
1,000%. Yeah, I see you. And I think it's how, and again, I think, and even as you were even going there, I think that how you articulate that is again by sharing that story, man, because it reveals that, okay, you didn't go down that path. So maybe you didn't look as cool, but I see you're a whole lot more sane and you're a whole lot more able to enjoy where you are. And you're in a whole lot more of a space of clarity of thinking. And so I can see that that's better. And now I have an opportunity now seeing a different side of things. I can make that decision now. Because think about it, in high school, and I'll say it for me, I'm just surrounded by cats, horny Negroes, man, all day, every day. Like nobody is stepping in the middle saying, this ain't something, because no one wants to be that party pooper kind of person. Nobody wants to ruin the fun. So let me just join in and get like everybody else, because I don't want to be that dude and I don't want to be hated around school. And I'm more worried about status. Man, I was I'm gonna hold on to that. Luke,
you there? What? Tell me what you mean, man. You've had that moment like that. What? Talk to us. What do you mean?
He might not be near. Might not be near. He'll come through.
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, no, I'm gonna hold on to that because I was just, it just popped up in my mind. But yeah, he said he's not at the PC.
No problem.
Yeah, I just meant I had a moment hearing about an unintended pregnancy. Oh, so he's speaking about the judgment on the face.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I just think, again, like sharing your story, those kinds of things, like, yeah, I was just so worried about status. You'll jump into certain stuff. And before you know it, you're programming yourself to do those things. Everybody talks about, I need to spend my 20s having fun and getting rid of all this out of me. That is the biggest lie I have ever heard in my life. Because all you're doing in that sense, when it comes to sexual relations, is programming your body to need that later on. And when you get into a space of a committed situation where they end up not doing that, you will find every reason to leave and not one to stay. And that's on you, not them. And that will always be an issue, man. So yeah, I wanted to get to, we answered Keyshawn's a little bit. Lecrae said something dope in a podcast. He's to satisfy a woman for a night. It's difficult to satisfy a woman for a lifetime. Hey,
bruh.
Hey.
Bruh.
We don't want to do the hard things, man.
Bruh.
We don't. It's, man.
I gotta steal that.
Yeah.
I gotta steal that. The depth of that is what I was talking about, the insecure man. You can go over here and be like, boy, I was blowing it up, boy. Well, you should have seen me. Why I rocked them draws? Yeah, but that's one time, but she can't count on you. You're inconsistent. You can't be a father. You can't really be somebody who's available. You're emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You're unavailable. Even if financially you paid her, you're unavailable to her. You're self-absorbed. You're only about you. And that's an insecurity, man. That's a fear of you're not enough. So you spread yourself because your outward things give you access, not who you are necessarily as a person. Boy, yeah, Lecrae dropped a bomb on that one.
Dropped a bar, man. Dropped the bar. Man, there's a bar in relation to this conversation that I've always remembered. Anytime that you look to receive a pleasure at the cost of violating another person is an illicit pleasure. Shout out Ravi Zacharias. That ninja said that, and it reveals your heart. So it's, again, like, men, and this is, again, for the men, like, yo, you are doing all of this because you know what that pain felt like to be used and thrown away. You responding that way, thereby treating women in the same fashion due to the fear of first being treated as such, reveals what you think about that person. Is that not a person to you? Are they not humanized to you? This is why a sit down conversation as a first date or first few dates, multiple dates, is massive. Because when you get to understand that person's story, all of a sudden they become a person to you. They become a human with real life experiences. And it ain't as easy to just go in there and manipulate them and walk through them, run through them and leave. That same thing that you don't want done to you is the same thing you're doing to them. And that is such a disturbing, distraught exposure of the human heart. It really is. It's not that you're just some evil person. It's the human heart. It's the human heart, man. You will come to places of thought like that and get there. Don't believe me? Just monitor your own thoughts this week. As a girl walks past, catch those thoughts that walk by and the things that you would think about doing that only you and God would know. Yeah, you don't got to look no further. You don't got to look outward to see how evil and messed up the human heart is. Look inward. It's in you. You got it. I got it. And it's why we must come to Christ, man, because he transforms all that. And you start seeing people for who they are in the sight of God. This person that's got value and purpose and more than some draws. I just can't get away with manipulating people like that, man. And it just kind of reveals your heart towards humans. So I kind of question, like you say you love people. Do you? Like, you say you got love, man, do you? You know, do you? So it's a legitimate question that we all got to ask, man. John, before I get to John, Rig asked a question in the Twitch chat. I saw him in the Maverick.tv chat as well. He asked, wouldn't that be lustful to have more than one wife? I'm very new to learning about Christ, so sorry if that's a dumb thing to say. Nah, Rig, you're not. It's not a dumb thing to say.
It's a great question. For sure.
Wonderful question. Is it lustful? Yeah, I think it is, and here's where I'll go with it though. Lust is the inward heart posture that leads to the actions that we see outwardly. So when Jesus talks about adultery, man, my pastor broke this down like crazy. I was like, oh snap. When he talks about adultery, Jesus doesn't extend the law that the Pharisees placed. He actually just goes deeper, because the Pharisees would tell you, hey, divorcing a woman, right? Or adultery is if there's actual infidelity. It actually went to that place. Jesus says, no, it's in your heart. It's first in your heart before it shows up there. The Pharisees and Sadducees, all these religious leaders, man, they were all about status and stuff, all on the outward things, the outward appearances, and fixing that. Sounds quite like a red pill thinking, doesn't it? I just want to fix all the outward things. Jesus says, no, I want to deal with your heart. And so he says, if you look on a woman with a lustful eye, you've therefore committed adultery. So we've all committed adultery in our lives. Even if you haven't been married and stepped out on your wife, you've committed it, because you envisioned seeing a woman and you was like, man, I'd love to know how I get in them draws. That's real, right? So the lust starts in the heart, and it starts with the thinking. So Jesus challenges us to start thinking differently. So when I start thinking about polygamy and the multiplicity of wives, as PD asks, what do you need them for? But when you get to the root of it, a lot of guys for basic, just from a basic knowledge perspective, shoot, I can just have more than one. I can just have access to cootie more than one. But then we're limiting them to just that. You see what I'm saying? So now we're dehumanizing them, and we're no longer putting ourselves in position to obey what Christ says, to love God and love people. Because you don't really love people like that when you limit them to objects and people you can just use.
Great. When my dad opened the door for me, the reason why I followed him down this door, because my dad was also impatient, insecure, emotionally unavailable, unwilling to commit to a woman. So he said to me, get another one. If this one, so you don't have to deal with this one. So what he was teaching me was to be irresponsible and unavailable to the things that I was called to be responsible for. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this wasn't about satisfaction. This was about me running from being accountable and responsible. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You can't handle that many people at one time effectively. It just doesn't work like that. Not in a relationship that is entwined like that and that has all of those additional, tentacles associated with it, especially when you introduce sex into that situation. It's just not possible. So what my dad was telling me was like, hey man, just don't worry about it. Like, go on and move on to the next thing. And I just don't think that people, man, have really paid much attention to that. A lot of them have been given permission. Not only prior to porn, you were given permission, but porn also supports your permissions to do the things that you want to do. But then all these other people that are out there telling you that, hey, it's a bad deal for you to get married, so just go get a whole bunch of women. So you start viewing women from it's a bad deal to get married. All women are a bad deal to get married, or the women that you're choosing? Where are you going to find these women?
Thank you, Jesus.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Ooh. So there's a shallowness to this process because you now have lumped all women into something that certainly don't address all women. It's not possible to. Right. So like even when women say all men are dogs, just not true. The men you keep choosing are dogs.
It goes back to escaping accountability. Right. And it's kind of like, man, so if I have multiple, right, if I got a roster, then I not only am I never investing myself fully into this space, but I don't see a need to because I got more. So I don't really need to do any work here on myself, anything. I could just go to the next. I can just go to that.
You never have to work on yourself.
Never have to work on yourself.
You never have to be accountable. You never have to be responsible.
No, it's
not in a relationship space. You don't.
Right. This is what blew my mind about that video that I uploaded today. But don't you want to get married? So if you want to get married, wouldn't it be in your best benefit for a man to want marriage? So why promote a message saying it's not beneficial for a man to get married? Does that not hurt you? Like I don't. It's just, it's just all over the place. It's all over the place. So hopefully that answered your question, Rigovich. If you had any thoughts on that, PD,
No, you're good.
You're good. I think it starts inward. It shows up outwardly, not just through cheating on your significant other, stepping on your wife. It's all in your thinking patterns. And so we have to come to a place where we submit that and deal with that. So you have to ask yourself, why do I want many? We don't sit and ask ourselves why we do what we do. We need to start doing that.
Let's talk about this. Yeah. If I have to cheat, then what else is missing in the relationship that I have that I don't know how to communicate what I need, right? What I want, and how to put that relationship together in a way that is going to be appropriate and right. If I have to cheat, what's missing? Something's wrong, Grape, if I have to go and find somebody else to sleep with in my life without being able to have the communication that I need to have with the person that I'm currently with. Now, let me say this to be fair. If this person shuts you completely off, does not want to say anything to you, will not communicate with you, will not go to counseling, will not do any of that, then you're limited in your options. But cheating isn't one of them. But what is one of them is, I don't advocate for divorce, but perhaps that situation is over if there's not even the opportunity for that other person to meet you in a reconciliation process. It might be over, but cheating is still not an option.
Yeah. Would you say in that space, when you say not even advocating for divorce, but again, we understand that there are situations where that is called for.
If that's what you have to do.
Right.
Again, if a person is unwilling, it's no different than me saying, oh, so I offended you, Sean. So I keep trying to reach out to you. I keep trying to reach out to you. I keep trying to reach out to you. We got history though, right? Hey, we've been, let's say we've been boys for like 20 years, but I offended you somehow. And I keep trying to reach out to you. I'm like, hey man, hit me back, man. Text me, hey man, hey bro, I want to have a conversation. Hey man, hey, meet me here, man. This, that, and the other. Hey man, I apologize. I know this was wrong, so on and so forth. Or hey, what can I do to fix this? And you just keep shutting the door. Do I just keep coming?
No,
this ain't a matter of prayer. This ain't a matter of any of that. At some point, I have to end that situation and be done with it and move on from it. But that's still wouldn't, watch this. That wouldn't even, let's just use that scenario. That wouldn't give me the right to go in public now because you didn't speak to me, to now say, oh, I'm gonna put this on all my social media. Man, y'all know that dude, Sean? Man, that dude, he this, that, another, blah, blah. Yeah, man, I tried to reach out. No, I still don't have that right because that speaks to who I am. Does that make sense?
Talk your talk.
Who are you is what is determined in that, man. And that's the difference right there. So I think that that's really important for us to understand that.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's kind of like, how do you deal with offense? because that will show up. And it's even, again, and I think how my pastor kind of brilliantly put this too. It's like, or local church pastor, he's like, there are some situations where it's more harmful to stay in it.
100%.
And so, you come to some decisions of divorce that if it's what it calls for.
Sean, I would never tell a lady who's married to a brother who says he's a believer, she's a believer. I would never. And I had this situation happen, and he put his hands on her. I am not telling her to stay. Now, be clear. I didn't tell her to get a divorce either, but I'm gonna tell her you need to exit that immediately. Immediately.
Find somewhere else.
I'm not telling you that you need to just go and pray for them and see what they need to say. No. If this brother busts you upside the head, no, you need to be out. That's just unacceptable. I don't care what the scenario is. It is unacceptable. You need to be out. That's just the way I feel about it. Yeah. I'm never going to say, just go back, pray for the brother. Hopefully, he turns the corner. Nah.
You need these hands. That's what you need.
Leave.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That's not spiritual for you to sit there and stay.
Yeah, that's not evidence of you loving Jesus.
You need to be more committed. I guess John MacArthur told a lady this in his church, and then he just recently lost a lawsuit against her or whatnot. And a lot of people came down on him. He told her this like some years ago, but I don't really follow that particular group, because I'm not of that ilk. But man, I saw it. Julie Roy's, man, she reports on all that stuff. And so all things church. And so anyway, man, yeah, he told a woman, he was like, you need to just go back and be submitted to your husband. Dude was breaking her off. And he was like, you need to submit to your husband. Wrong advice, man. Wrong information. I'm going to tell a woman, leave immediately. Be out. Dude should never put your hands, and she should never put her hands on you either. Let me be clear about that. Just in case somebody gets that twisted in here. She should never put her hands on you. That's not that you're a man. It wouldn't even bother you. No. Nobody should put their hands on anybody. Keep it moving. Say what you need to say and keep it moving. But yeah, sometimes, man, hey, after you've done all that you can do, then you go on. Jesus even said, hey, if as much as it's possible, as much as it depends on you, if it's possible, be at peace with all men. So that scripture lets us know that it might not be possible. It says, but as much as it depends on you, if it's possible, be at peace. In other words, do your part. If a person doesn't want to do their part, then you're left with little to no options.
Yeah. You don't provoke that person to get out of character and move in passion.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't do it because it just reveals your heart. Good stuff. I like a lot of that. So hopefully those thoughts help there. John, I believe he had, I hope you got that quote too, Dion. I just now saw that. Keyshawn hooked you up. So I appreciate that, Keyshawn. Shout out to you. Is someone not being a virgin a biblical reason to not marry them? Or I'm sorry, to not want to marry them? So is someone not being a virgin a biblical reason to not want to marry them? How can you bring that up when you and a girl are waiting for marriage, but are not sure about their past?
I'm going to say no. That's a real easy no for me. A person could have, a couple of things could have happened. So let's give two scenarios real quick. One, they could have not known Christ, nor the values, nor practiced those values, had premarital sex. And now they know Christ and they've kept themselves and they're preparing themselves and they waited for their spouse. The other scenario could be this person did know it and they did a human thing and made a poor decision and put themselves in a position where that was there. Now, some of y'all might not feel like that's a poor decision. Demetrius does. Has nothing to do with my age. This has nothing to do with any of those things. Either God's word is true or we're true. But it can't be both of us. We both can't be the truth. One of us got to be the truth. So God's the truth And so God's plan is for us to save ourselves into this relationship, into this covenant, and to explore again this sexual relationship within the confines and the context of a marriage. That way we don't have all of those outside influences and we come into them. I believe that that person must have a ongoing conversation with that particular individual prior to getting married to her, to make sure that her experiences, that she's handled them, that she's dealt with them, that he can handle them and he can deal with them, knowing again that there's been somebody in that space previous to him, who had access to her body like that. He's got to be able to handle it more than anything. But I don't think it's a reason not to get married to someone, unless that's just a personal choice where you say, my preference is that I marry somebody who's a virgin. And there's nothing wrong with that preference. And I don't think that that person should be judged either, because I think that's easy to do too, where people be like, oh man, he tripping. No, he's not. That's his preference. That's what he wants. And vice versa. If it's a woman and she's like, hey, this is what I want, I think we got to let people be who they are. If purity is something that they want to go into, they're like, hey, I want a woman that hasn't been touched. Cool. He has every right to, but I don't think it's a reason, like a biblical reason to be like, oh, I can't marry you because you're defiled. I don't believe that's the case. So hopefully if he is asking it like that, cool. But I think in both of those situations, people have made poor decisions. I also think this is where we have to be careful. We have to be careful that we don't use objects like just sex to say that a person sinned, because you could have been somebody who was stealing from your employer, but you never had sex, right? You could have been somebody who lies a lot, but you never had sex, right? You could have been somebody, right, who has a double life, but you've been dealing with porn, but you never had physical sex. So I think that we have to be careful about just pointing out like one thing and making it the boogeyman of all Christian boogeyman things, right? So that's where we can get in trouble over those kind of things. But I don't think it's wrong for somebody who worked on themselves and said, man, I kept myself, and that's what I want out of my spouse, somebody who kept themselves. I don't think that we should frown on that dude either, or that gal. If that gal says, hey, I love you and stuff like that, but no, I want somebody who hasn't had that experience yet. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You basically touched on what I was going to say. I think, we can't make that the end all be all. Like that we all have sinned in so many different ways, egregiously, not just in a sexual capacity. So I think you have to ask yourself, where do I draw the line? Like, am I no longer eligible for marriage because I was addicted to pornography?
No, not at all.
I was, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, we can't really move by that. Here's what will trip you up. Now, again, I do want to preference the context, but read the book of Hosea. That brother was instructed to go grab the whole of the town as a symbolic gesture of Christ's relationship to Israel. So I think in a lot of ways, man, I want you to think about this too. Again, it's not necessarily to say that you got to go get somebody with so many bodies. Like, we're not trying to say that that's something that's mandatory. Again, as PD said, if it's preference, so be it. But like, bro, like, how long were we that mistress in the book of Hosea before making a full decision to commit to Christ?
Most of us still are mistresses. The majority of us are part-time lovers, man. And that's why there's grace and brand new mercies for us. And that Jesus keeps calling us back to him on a regular basis, right? And we can repent without having to do a whole bunch of laws, 668 of them or whatever it is of the laws. We don't have to try to do all them laws to get back in right standing. It's just a matter of repenting, and again, turning away from that sin. But I believe that most of us struggle with the part-time lover syndrome anyway.
Yeah. So it's like, bro, that's like, man, and Jesus is like, come on. And his forgiveness, his grace, his transformation, like all that. So I just think, again, bro, when you get that's why it's so important to know that it's bigger than what you see. It's always bigger than what you see. That person's sexual history is not just because that's what they wanted to do all the time. there's some stories behind that stuff. And I think if you got an understanding, I'm not saying that you would side with it. I'm not saying that you would go with it. I'm not saying that gives you room to say, hey, all right, I'm gonna go with it because you told me everything. It just gives you more context to consider. And you put yourself in that same category. You're like, bro, like if I was there, man, and that person, and again, as PD alluded to, man, that person is on the right track now, has made better decisions now. You're seeing a change of things now compared to what they're talking about from what happened in their past to who they are. Like, man, I just think there's a lot of people that you will look over who could be a blessing for your life, all because they had sexual exposure earlier than marriage.
I'm speaking for myself.
Go for it.
I'm the prime example. I'm a figure of that. I'm a prime example. I had 2 kids prior to getting married. I've only been married one time, period. Right? I've been with my wife for 33 years, in my 31st year of being married. I've been married one time, but I had kids prior to that. She could have been like, she had that option, but I wasn't the person who had those kids as teenagers. I wasn't that person anymore. So I'm a prime example of that.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful not to dismiss who that person is, but she saw that fruit in my life. So she wasn't trying to figure out if that fruit actually existed. She saw that fruit. That fruit was there. She could walk up to that tree and pluck from it. Hey, this is what this is. This isn't that. This is this. So it's, I think it's important for us to be careful before we do jump into a judgment or something that, may have been a part of our lives, but isn't who we are today.
Yeah, 1000%. I 1000% agree. So again, just something to continue thinking on. Looks like that's it, man, for the questions. So we can wrap up, man. That's a good conversation, y'all. Think we got into a lot.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah,
I like this. And let me just say this to end to my little piece here or whatever, whatnot. Guys, being able to be with a woman, commit your heart to a woman, commit your heart to somebody, to grow with them, to build with them, to struggle with them. I got to put that in there. To struggle with them, to argue with them, to disagree with them, to sit with them. The Bible's very clear to us, especially as men. It talks to us about knowing how to dwell according to wisdom with your wife. This is an important thing for us to even be able to recognize. And they be like, see, man, that's what they don't say nothing about the woman with the man. This, again, becomes a large part of the responsibility that God placed on the male, because the male demands these and has this responsibility of leadership and guidance for their entire family. And so there's got to be this temperance. There's got to be this part of you that recognizes and realizes what it means for you to actually fully step into your maleness as a man and understand the completeness of that. And man, it's a big thing. It's not an easy thing to do. And most of us haven't seen it modeled. Most of y'all ain't never had a conversation like this. This is probably the deepest conversation that some of y'all have probably had, and you should continue with other people that are around you instead of letting those conversations be stuff like, man, just go ahead and bust that open, brother. You ain't never gonna, no. I mean, really think about it. Why did God intend for us to go down this pathway? Because let me answer that question too, because I wanted to answer that before I got off here, because it looks like Christ in the church, Ephesians chapter number 5. That's what it looks like. I'm saying, is it 5 or 4? 4, 5.
1 Corinthians, Christ, loves us like Christ loved the church?
No, this is marriage.
Oh, husbands love your wives. Ephesians,
right?
Ephesians 5:25.
5:25, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a picture of Christ in the church. Commitment to a bride. Giving of himself to a bride. This is the thing, right? He talks to a man about giving of himself, committing himself to that. So there's a process of sacrifice that goes into that, and you got to be ready for that. Otherwise, you'll start looking for somebody else to satisfy what's between your legs and not what's part of your legacy, not what's a part of who you are and where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. And I'll tell you, there's a heavy price to pay for not doing it God's way, truthfully.
Yeah, that's beautiful thoughts right there. I'm gonna close it at that. Man, shout out to Baka dropping the homework in the chat. Greatly appreciate you. Shout out to everybody who coming through, man, listening to this entire conversation. We appreciate you oh so much. Again, go get your Ninja membership. Hopefully you had enough time, more than enough time to go get it for the free. But we got streams, man, going down maybe tomorrow, maybe over the weekend, something along those lines. Plenty of exclusive content over there. And plus you get to watch the stream replay of this entire conversation. You can also catch the replay over on YouTube as well for everybody who's catching it. If you want to re-listen to it, share it with your friends. We would love for you to do that. And homework, man, we finished the book of Psalms. Give it up, man. Everybody give a round of applause for everybody in there finishing up the book of Psalms, man. Longest book in the Bible, or one of them. I keep saying that, but it's one of them. 150 chapters. You guys powered through that. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of that. We are going to usher into the book of Proverbs. Okay, the wisdom literature. So I got that typed up and dropping in the Discord. You guys go in there, check it out. Chapters 1-7. Read those, take notes, come back. Extra credit. I'm also going to, issue, man, you guys go back and re-listen to the Pearl of Proverbs series that we've got over here. An amount of catalog that we have. Go back and catch some of those stream replays as you journey through the book. Not all just this week, but just through the book. Go catch a stream, rewatch it, re-listen to a lot of stuff that was dropped there. Amazing stuff. And shoot, we'll go and get out of here. Luke, you around? Maybe you are.
Did we answer that question?
Oh, my man. Oh, he just did?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Thank you, Luke. I did not catch that. Man, before we go, Jalen? Oh, man. I'm just tripping. I'm tired. How do you quit sex addiction?
That's beyond me. No, I'm just saying. I'm saying that's beyond me. I think that, like with most addictions, I think there's a source. I think there's an entry point, and I think that there's got to be a willingness for. A friend of mine put it this way, and it made a lot of sense to me. Who's a therapist? He said, "People who want to change get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then they start to go down pathways of making transitions and changes." That's a therapy question. I would highly encourage that therapy is put into that space because I don't know the hook that exists in a particular individual. I don't know how long they've been practicing it, the depth of it. I don't know what the supporting factors are in their lives, around their lives, that keep them in that place where they can keep it a secret. Instead of it being exposed out in the open. There's a lot to that. But I will tell you, the first step is always being sick and tired of being sick and tired of it. And then doing something about it, taking a step to say, I've got to change this. That has to enter into a person's mind where they go, I'm done. I can't continue my life like this. Something has to change.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm a big proponent, man. Again, I've battled with one of my own through pornography. 7+ years.
Was that really sex addicted. Addiction or porn addiction?
Porn addiction. Let me say that. I'm sorry, porn addiction. But I do think sex addiction is probably a lot more egregious for sure. So I won't necessarily try to connect the two.
There's a show. I cannot remember the name, but Mike Garofalo plays a sex addict in this show, and I think it's on Netflix or something like that. Okay. It's very interesting. This dude is man, he's very successful. He does all this, but he puts himself in the most dangerous situations, man, by going out there, man, sleeping with prostitutes. He's lying to his family about what he's doing, to do all this stuff or whatever. And every time he does it, he beats himself up, man. But he constantly would put himself in all these dangerous situations just to go have sex because he was a sex addict. So he wasn't just like, oh, I need to watch some porn and beat my meat. That wasn't what was happening. This dude was like, no, I need to physically find a woman that I can go do. So he would leave work, man. He would catch women in between work at his office and so on and so forth, man, and go and have relations, man, with strangers, just absolute strangers. And then he'd go home, right? But he would it was crazy because you could feel it through the movie, man, where he was struggling, just trying to just get himself out of it. And he couldn't until he got to a point, man, where basically he was just ruining his life. He was about to ruin his life. He was about to lose everything. And that was the thing that brought him to the brink of starting to make that change and transition. But yeah, the whole movie was about him walking through this struggle and lying to himself about it the whole time, thinking he could control it. He was like, nah, I got it under control. And I'm never doing this again or whatever, so on and so forth. And in a moment, man, he was impulsive. In a moment, he would get up from his office, leave, and go find some absolute stranger, man, just to have sex with. Craziest thing I ever seen in my life. So I think it's deeper, man. I think it's deep.
It sounds a lot deeper. So I'm not necessarily going to try to overtalk or anything. I just think, man, I think overcoming things like that, man, Jesus is needed. Let me just say it like that.
Don't think I didn't think that.
No, I know you. Yeah. And I know you said the same thing. So we're saying the same thing. But sure. Man, Jesus is just needed. Because you're not gonna defeat that under your own strength.
No.
And so I think always it's a step that is needed in those spaces is to come to him. But then also therapy could be something that's a massive measuring stick to take in that space. I also would tell you, man, I think a lot of times when it comes to addiction, we can go into the scientific route. We can do all that. I don't necessarily think that's something that would stick in the moment, if that's something that maybe you or someone you know is struggling. But I would say, man, you understanding how, as we talked about all night, I think understanding your why is a huge part of really being able to unlock the actions and behaviors that are being repeated, and then being able to now make a decision under clear understanding. What am I going to do? And I think as long as you're blinded to like the why behind it, progress won't be made and it'll continue. And so you have to make the decision to say, as PD alluded to, that it's enough is enough. And I pray, whether it's you, someone you know, wherever this question may be sourced from, I pray that it doesn't come to worst case scenarios in order to see that change happen. But I think the Proverbs says it best. The wise see danger ahead and avoid it, but the fool continues on and punished and perishes. And so I think looking at the road that you're on and seeing clearly what's ahead and what you're in danger of having, receiving, being a part of, and how dangerous it can get. I think the more that you see that and the more that you can understand that that's not a future that you want and that's not a future that you want to choose, we have to make a decision to go the other direction. And it's not going to be so easy. Like, you're going to fight. It's going to be a lot of temptation, crazier temptation. Your body is used to it. So there's going to be a hunger. There's going to be a lot of like starving the flesh, but we don't just simply not do it. We have to put ourselves in place to create rhythms that replaces it. And so, again, Bible reading, podcasts, worship music, getting in community that's going to keep you accountable, massive. Because then you're going to be able to actually see fruit and transformation instead of just coming into certain places, veins popping out, tired because you can't, you fighting all night long. And so those are maybe even more applicable things you can do. But I mean, shoot, depending on the severity, yeah, I do think therapy could be necessary, depending on the severity of it, because that's a real big deal. But I don't think there is, I haven't met anybody who can just up and quit. And that's not to say that it can't happen. Say my guy won't do it. He can deliver people off rip. But a lot of times, man, people will go through a process where they're, again, not to get into the science stuff, but it's just you're programmed over stuff for so long. It takes a while for that brain to be rewired to a place of healthiness. And so It's not a situation where it's overnight and you're gonna be able to wake up tomorrow morning and go, I dropped it. You're gonna fight. Be prepared and know what's required of you to build that up and have the life you want and make the decision every time. And when you relapse, man, and when you fall, it's an opportunity to stand back up. Not an opportunity to destroy yourself, not an opportunity to condemn yourself. It's an opportunity to stand back up and make a decision to recommit to the right thing and continue pouring into the right sources. That's going to eventually wash all that out over time because it's a process. So that would be my only thing to it. Hopefully that is something that is beneficial. I appreciate you, Luke, for catching that. Appreciate you so much. Yeah, so that's it, man. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Catch you guys here same time next week for another phenomenal conversation. Homework is in the Discord. Say it again.
You see what Dion said in the chat?
Let me check it. Yep. Okay, cool. Yep. And before you guys go, man, especially for anybody who, again, relates to the last question, anything like that, guys, check out manenoughchallenge.com for day-to-day guidance. Okay. Especially, addiction struggles, wherever you are, young men all around here. You guys check out Man Enough Challenge. I'm gonna put the URL there. Check out the YouTube chat. I just put it down there at the bottom of the comment section. I can't put it in the Twitch. I can't type in the comments. I'm not a subscriber. manenoughchallenge.com for day-to-day guidance through those kinds of things. It's going to help you really, really get more and more understanding behind certain things like that and help you process through some things early on to start seeing some different results and answers to those things and beginning to make more decisions, removing passion, getting clarity through logic and reasoning. That sensory is typically lost in those spaces. We want to gain it back. And I think that's the space you want to be in. So definitely check that out, manenoughchallenge.com, and walk you through that entire process that I think will be so beneficial for you, more ways than one. So there's that. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Can't wait to see you next week. Be here, same time, same place. Until then, God first. God bless.